Hello, this is Wendy Lynn here again. Today we're going to talk about what I like to call the Venn diagram test. We use it when we're trying to sense check whether or not a user segmentation makes sense. So the best way to learn is to actually apply it. So before we jump in, let's talk about the basic concept of a Venn diagram. You think about two concepts that are separate. If they overlap, then we can see that they are not distinct enough for our product case. You'll often heard this concept referred to as MISI, mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. When we talk about this Venn diagram today, we're going to be talking about how it makes it clear that they are not mutually exclusive. Remember, this is a rule of thumb, it's not a law. It doesn't mean you always 100% have to apply this. But in this case, I'm going to give you an example where it's obvious. And so in cases where you've come up with user segments and they're just not working, go back and look at them and apply this Venn diagram test. And it'll often help things click for you, and it'll make it easier for you to start thinking about more MISI groups. So let's dive in and take a look at this case. So the prompt was build a product to help people buy a home. And in this case, my client chose first-time buyers, upgrading a home, buying in town, and buying out of town. I have seen this probably 100 plus times. This is for this particular prompt. This is a common segmentation. We get kind of nervous. We think about the big things. Okay, first-time buyers versus other buyers, and then we rack our brains to come up with a couple of extra, and then we end up with overlapping segments. And this happens a lot where you have two really strong ones and then you feel like, oh, I've got to come up with another one. And people either come up with one more or two more, and suddenly they've got these overlapping concepts. So while my client was giving me this list, I started building this Venn diagram. As you can see, I put first time on the left and upgrade on the right. And then what I said was, okay, if I'm trying to find a home within town, I could also be a first time buyer. So you can see the overlap. Or I could be upgrading my home, getting a new home. Same thing happens for out of town. If your user segments fall into this Venn diagram problem where there's a significant overlap, then it's probably not going to work. There's very few cases where you can get away with user segments where there's this much of an overlap. For now, we're just going to keep it as that simple lesson of if you have overlapping user segments, try the Venn diagram test to help yourself see the problem.